Hey y'all, welcome back to Share TV, where we will be recapping The Real Housewives of Orange County, Season 19, Episode 4. And before we jump into things, of course, always want to give my disclaimer. I do not know these people. I'm basing my opinions on an edited show, and everything I say is, of course, alleged. If you've liked my videos so far, please go ahead and give this a like and subscribe so you don't miss when I post a video. But we will jump straight into things because we pick up right where we left off last episode, where we are at Heather's birthday party, or I'm just gonna call it a party. We're at Heather's party, and we finish up with Shannon, of course, walking away from Katie's attempt at trying to apologize. And Shannon says that Katie is worse than John Jansen and Alexis Bellino. Shannon, you've been wronged by so many people, but Katie recording you is not as bad as John Jansen suing you last season, but whatever. So now we are realizing that Tamra is the source of this information coming out in the first place. Surprise, surprise, Tamra's at the center of all of the things that come out this episode, especially when it comes to Katie. But we move around a little bit at this party. So Katie, after Shannon walks away, decides that she's gonna leave. So her and her husband, Matt, are walking out. And at this time, this is when Tamra decides that she was gonna bring Joe, which is Slade's ex-girlfriend, to Heather's party. So she's walking in at the same time that Katie is walking out. Tamra bringing Joe is like the biggest high school stretch ever. If she thought she was gonna get back at Gretchen, it kind of backfired because Gretchen then ended up going over and talking to Joe, and they kind of acted like it wasn't a bother. But for you to bring somebody's ex-girlfriend of 10 plus years, because Gretchen and Slade have been together for almost 10 or 15 years now. So it's why would you bring this ex? And Joe doesn't have anything else going on that she's gonna just come to this party to get back at somebody's, I don't know, because you have beef with a friend. It was just very weird. It was such a reach. It was honestly a little bit embarrassing for Tamra because it's not somebody that Tamra is necessarily super close to. So all in all, it was kind of weird. But anyway, they're walking up into the party when Katie and Matt are walking out. Katie is visibly upset, and Tamra decides that she is going to basically chase her down the sidewalk to see what's wrong, as if Tamra even cares in the first place. She definitely doesn't. But at this point, Matt is just I don't understand why you're pretending to care when you were the one who started this, which this will come into play later in the episode, because then Tamra tries to claim that Matt yelled at her. And the producers had Katie's back in this instance, and so did I. He did not yell at her, and I am all in agreement that the husband should not get involved in the housewives drama. I've said that numerous times. However, they were not coming to you with this drama. You were basically chasing them as they are trying to leave. So I can understand why Matt's just we're leaving. This is all started with you in the first place, so don't pretend to care. So in this one instance, I will have Matt's back on this because they were leaving and Tamra chased them. Anyway, after Matt and Katie leave, Tamra goes into the party with Joe. Like I said, it kind of backfired and looked a little bit embarrassing for her. Heather acted like this was totally okay. And I'm getting really weirded out by Heather having so much backing for Tamra this season. I don't know if Tamra has some dirt on her or Heather just needs an ally. It's weird because Tamra has done some crazy things and hurt a lot of people, and for Heather to just be well, she's working on things and she's in therapy now and she's going through things. It's in a sense they're all going through things or have gone through things, and Tamra's just vile. And at this point it's Jenn said it best, you have to change your behavior, and Tamra's not changing her behavior. Personally, I feel it's getting worse, but we'll get there. So she's not changing any of her behaviors, and then will play the victim and be I don't understand why everybody's upset with me. So we wrap up that part of the party and we end with them dancing and having a really good time. And oh, one thing I wanted to mention. So when Emily and Gina were sitting at the party and they were enjoying their little snacks or whatever, they started talking about Gretchen, which was weird because I didn't know that Gina and Emily had beef with Gretchen to the point where they're like talking about her appearance and her looks. And I was very just disappointed. I think the common theme for this episode is like, are we in high school? And it's actually giving, are we in middle school? So of all people to talk about somebody's looks, Emily gets very offended if anybody mentions her weight or anything like that. And I think it's just like cheap shots to say that Gretchen looked like a 2003 Instagram filter and they were laughing about it like they were little kids. I was like, first of all, Gretchen looked amazing at this party. I thought she looked really beautiful. I loved her hair like this. So to come for her and for her looks for seemingly no reason when you guys don't even necessarily have spoken beef with her is disappointing to say the least. And I think if the roles were reversed and somebody was talking about Gina's appearance or Emily's appearance, and they have both had issues with that. Gina had a really horrible season, if you remember the extensions. Like, so coming at Gretchen for her looks was cheap and low, and I was very disappointed in both of them. And I like Emily and Gina, so I was a little bit shocked by that behavior. But we will move on from that. I hope that they don't do that again. It's the same thing when Tamara was talking about Jenn and her being heavier. And I just think talking about somebody's appearance is a cheap shot because they could all talk about each other's appearances if we were going to go there. So, and they're women that are in their 40s and 50s. So it's low. And one last thing before I move on from the party. Jenn goes up to Tamara and asks her if they could have a one-off conversation outside of it being Heather's event. And Tamara just looks shocked, like she doesn't know what Jenn would possibly want to talk to her about. And this comes back into play later in the episode because Tamara really exaggerated the way that Jenn came and asked her to have this conversation. So I'm going to jump to that part because Jenn's asking her very calmly and nicely, hey, can we have a one-off conversation outside of Heather's event? I think there are some things we need to discuss. Tamara says yes. She says that Jenn looks beautiful. Jenn says it back. They move on. Well, then when Tamara is speaking about how Jenn asked her, she made it seem like she was just like, did Heather give you the same speech? I think I want to talk to you. And Tamara will like take the smallest thing and like make it sound like Jenn was like forcing her to have a conversation or like it was hostile. And I felt like Jenn came to her very calm to have this conversation. So the way that Tamara relays information back is way more dramatic than it started, similar to saying that Matt had yelled at her. So we're seeing this common theme with how she basically plays this game of telephone with other people. Somebody will say something to her and then she relays it to another person and it sounds completely different, which comes into play with how she treats Katie at the end of this episode. But before we get there, after the party wraps up, we flip to a couple of scenes with the housewives and we get to Gina and Travis. I actually really enjoy seeing this part of Gina's storyline with her real estate and her working with Travis. They made their own real estate group, so now they seem to be doing really well. I'm really happy for her. Also, I know a lot of people come for Gina, but I'm really glad to see like her story kind of coming like full circle. When we first met her, she was still married and an actual housewife, and then she kind of got the rug pulled from underneath her. So for her to build that back, I have to give credit where credit is due, and I am proud of her. I think it's great that she is showing this part of herself on the show. I would love to see more of their business and the houses and the real estate, but I know that would end up being a different show. But I'm glad that we're getting to see what she's doing with Travis. Side note, I don't know how Travis feels about all his manhood always being referenced. I am like, this is giving kind of weird. Like, why are we always discussing what Travis is like has downstairs? I'm like, it's tacky, Gina. But we flip then to Heather and Terry, and well, more so Heather. They're selling their house that they bought, I believe it was last season, because now they don't think it's a good fit. They realized that this project was going to be a little bit too big for them. Now she's saying that by the time this project would be done, her youngest one would be almost a senior in high school. You guys, like, I know I'm not the only one who thinks, well, didn't you think of these things before you bought this multi-million dollar mansion? And now you are trying to do like a quick sale and sell it. The house is beautiful. I think even the minimum work that they did just to put it back on the market looked amazing. And the view and where it's located, I would have just stayed there, but I guess she just wants another project. But buying and selling these houses is kind of getting to be a little ridiculous, because it's like, what's the point? Just buy a house, make it what you want, and stay there. I think a house is a really big purchase and a big commitment. So a lot of things go into making that decision that seems like they should have been talked about before they did this. But she brings in some people to list this home. I guess she has a history with them and they have a history with each other. So hopefully she gets her house sold and she finds what she wants, but I'm getting a little tired of the house storyline. That's just me. So then we pan to Tamra with her daughter, Sophia. So she's talking about she's going to community college and she's wanting her to move out, but Sophia has every excuse as to why she can't move out. And basically she just wants to stay at home. And I know Tamra with her kids has historically been a really big storyline just because of the issues with her other daughter. And now she's saying if Sophia leaves, like when Sydney left, she never came back. But I'm like, also Sophia's 19 and is starting to become, like, she's become an adult and she needs to be on her own. It's not the same thing as Sydney moving out at 14 and never coming back. And I feel like because Tamra knows that she's gotten so much flack for, I guess, how she is as a mom or the issues with her other daughter, that she's trying to like kind of showcase a storyline with Sophia to be like a great mom. And I'm not going to come for anybody's momhood on here, but just because we see like so much turmoil with Tamra, everything in her other aspects of her life seem really fake or produced or forced, that it's not giving organic. So like when we see Katie with her family towards the end of the episode, and I think it's a common theme, everybody knows how I feel about Katie. However, Katie does have like some redeeming qualities, and you see her with her family and it seems more genuine. When I see Tamra with her daughter, it seems forced to prove that like, look, I'm a great mom. And she's still bringing up the issues with Sydney on screen, which is the biggest thing that Sydney didn't want her to do. And she's doing it for this part of her storyline. And I don't think she's ever going to repair that relationship with her daughter when she is explicitly doing something that Sydney asked her not to do. And she keeps bringing her up on the show. So we'll leave that where it is. But I hope she can repair that relationship with her daughter, and maybe taking a step back from talking about her would be a step forward. But we pan to Emily, Gretchen, and Shannon at yoga. I don't know what it's called when you do like the suspended in the air yoga, but this is why I love Shannon, because she is just naturally funny. She can't do the yoga. She looks a hot mess. It's just, this is like the glimmer of Housewives we got this episode that like took us back, where they're doing an activity and they're having fun and they're laughing and getting along. Like, these moments are so far and few between that I have to just call that out, just because I really enjoyed watching them. And then of course they have a conversation about the party and Katie and Tamra being of course the root of all of this, and then Katie being a liar. And Katie is a liar. She's lied about a lot of things. However, at this point in this episode, she's trying to own it and apologize. So we have to either apologize and move on, or apologize and just move forward. You don't necessarily have to be friends with her. But this being the main focus is getting a little bit tiring, and everybody ganging up on her is starting to become a bullying situation. And I'm not a Katie fan. However, when you bully or gang up on one person, the natural human instinct is to protect that person. So it's kind of backfiring on them because now people are rooting for Katie. I don't agree with rooting for Katie, but I don't agree with the bullying either. So we'll get there a little bit later in the episode at the very end. But that's where we pan to Tamra. No. So Heather, Gina, and Katie meet up for coffee or breakfast or what have you. And they're talking about the party, and Katie's just saying, like, I'm owning it. I'm trying to make things right. I'm trying to apologize. And then Heather brings out that Katie met with a radio host or a blogger, and she said that Tamra said that Katie was trying to sell stories about the other housewives. In this one instance, I believe Katie, and I hope that I don't regret that. Do I think she should have talked to this person? No, because she has a bad history with talking to bloggers, hosts, other people outside the show that can either leak information or create stories about the housewives. However, I don't think she had the intention of trying to sell negative stories about anyone. So I'm going to be on her side and give her the benefit of the doubt for the one time. However, she seems pretty shocked, and I think even Gina and Heather are starting to formulate that a lot of these things are happening because Tamra's stirring the pot. And like I previously said, Tamra will take a little bit of information and flip it and spin it into something that it's not. And I feel like this is the situation that's happening here. And this is a situation we'll focus on only to give Katie the benefit of the doubt here, because I don't think that Katie was trying to sell bad stories to this specific radio host or person. And now Gina is trying to give Katie a little bit more of the benefit of the doubt. I think Heather hopefully is realizing that a lot of these stories are starting with Tamra, and hopefully she'll stop going so hard for Tamra, because if Tamra is going to do this to other people, it's only a matter of time, Heather, before she does it to you again. So I hope that Katie is being honest in this situation, but only time will tell. And then we pan to Katie at home. Like I said, I love seeing Katie actually with her family and with her husband. It seems genuine. Like when she's having conversations with Matt, they have a really good chemistry. You can tell that there's a lot of love in that home, and she's talking about having all of her kids under the same roof has never happened for her. And my heart kind of went out to her in that situation. So I know her oldest daughter is moving out. I think she's 20 or 21. However, at least having them close and they can kind of grow up together, since it was such a struggle with her, even trying to get custody back of her kids. And now that they're wanting to live with her, I hope everything goes well with that. But these are the moments where Katie has redeeming qualities, and I think that's the difference between like Katie and Tamra. Tamra is giving all bad and Katie is like, okay, but she's a good mom, and I love seeing her with her husband and having these organic moments, and their chemistry doesn't seem forced. And so these are the redeeming qualities that I would like to see more of from Katie, instead of us just focusing on who she's talking to outside the show. I am hoping, actually, I don't think these things go away just based on like what we've seen on social media for how the season goes, but I'm hoping we do get to see a little bit more of Katie's other side versus just focusing on her talking to bloggers. So I'm really looking forward to hopefully seeing some of that. Tamra finally, at the end of the episode, meets up with Jenn. And I will say, I feel like Jenn went into the situation hoping that she could get answers and get her questions or whatever issues she has with Tamra. Obviously, we know the issues. Tamra had said that the FBI raided her home, and Jenn was in the middle of a custody battle, which that can be very damaging for obvious reasons. And Tamra had also said some pretty disparaging things towards Ryan. And then Ryan had hit back on a couple of podcasts talking about Eddie. So this really kind of seems like an issue that Eddie and Ryan need to work out. But where it went to Tamara and Jenn having an issue is now Tamara's bashing Jenn. So it's one thing if you want to stick up for your husband, Eddie, and say, like, hey, Ryan said XYZ, and then Ryan can say, hey, Eddie said XYZ. But now Tamara's making that her personal grievance and coming at Jenn below the belt with like talking about her looks and saying that she basically is like single white femaling her and wants to have her life. And we finally get clarification on Jenn wearing the hair extensions. It clearly was a lighthearted joke, like, haha, I'm wearing Tamara's hair extensions. She did not leave the salon with these hair extensions in her head. So, and she told Tamara about it and they laughed about it. So this is when I say Tamara will take something that happened and then twist it into something that didn't actually happen. So glad we got some clarification there. But I also feel like Tamara went into this dinner meetup just already on the defense and already really negative. You can tell that her energy was just very combative and defensive. And Jenn does a really good job at like trying to stay calm and trying to like figure out different ways to talk to her. And then Tamara accuses Jenn of being high and mighty and thinking she's better than Tamara. And it just goes sideways from there. I don't think their issues are so big that like they couldn't be resolved. But with someone like Tamara, like she'll apologize and then she does the same behavior. And that's even if you get the apology in the first part. Tamara doesn't own anything that she does, but she wants everyone else to own what they did and apologize to her. And then Tamara gets very confused. She's like, I just don't understand why she's upset with me and what her problem is with me. And I'm confused. And that whole stint is getting old. Tamara's too old to be acting like this. And I really wanted them to at least come to a common ground to agree to disagree or have Ryan and Eddie communicate with each other and kind of work that situation out. Because the problem with this season, I feel like, is we're not moving anything forward. So with Tamara and Jenn, we didn't move anything forward. I think we're in a worse place than before they had the conversation or attempted to have a conversation. With Katie, now we're bringing up yet another instance where she's talked to a radio host or a blogger and we're not moving that conversation forward. So I feel like we're getting stuck and the episodes are getting redundant, right? We're talking about the same issues. There's no progression. I would like to see a little bit more fun or them having fun. We got like 1 second of like watching them dance at Heather's party and then Shannon kind of messing up at yoga, which were like lighthearted moments. But outside of that, it's just kind of heavy. We have bullying, we have fat shaming, we have look shaming. So it's getting to be a little bit difficult to watch these grown women come at each other like this with no resolution and nothing has been moving forward, which now that we've recapped the episode, I think just brings a bigger conversation to, has the Housewives run its course? Right now we have issues where they're talking to people outside of the show and bloggers, and it's less organic and more produced from the Housewives. And have the OG Housewives or the long tenured Housewives, do we need to like do a churn and burn situation to where you're getting new people and new storylines? Because we are now dealing with storylines like with Tamara and Gretchen from like 10 plus years ago. We're dealing with situations with Shannon that we didn't even see on camera. We're dealing with situations with Tamara and Jenn from like last season and the season before. So it's like, this is just a lot of not movement and getting pretty stagnant. And so each episode is basically recapping the same thing in the same conversation. So I hope next episode they go to New Orleans. So I hope we get to see a little bit more lighthearted, fun, bring back part of the original Housewives to where we get to see them getting along for a moment in time, and bring back the petty drama, not the deep bullying and gang up drama. And I hate to say it, but this episode I was kind of just rooting for Katie a little bit because it's becoming a lot. So we'll see how next week's episode goes when they go on vacation. So looking forward to seeing that. Please make sure you guys like and subscribe so that you don't miss a video. Appreciate your time today, and I will see you guys next Friday. Bye.